Oh, no, just.
If
Hi.
if you're here on here, please make sure you mute
Yeah, makes it
yourself.
so long.
All right.
Thank you.
Jim, sorry, I just needed to mute everyone because I'm letting folks in at the same time. I can't mute and admit folks. Would you mind waiting just a moment to finish your introduction? Okay, thank you. Looks like we have most folks muted.
Fantastic. All right, I want to welcome again here to Char Talk, and we've got a few people that will be popping in typically by about 5 after we have it. Most folks who are going to be coming here today. We're excited today at Minnesota Biochar to be part of the launch of Biochar On Site, grassroots initiative that started out west but is coming in now. And the best way I can describe it is getting local biomass turned into local soil carbon, which is an awesome opportunity. And we have quite the legacy the veterans on this project coming through. So I'm very excited to see how it's going to go. I want to introduce myself. My name is Jim Doughton, and I was one of the founders of MNBI and the moderator for these shows typically. And I'm the carbon sequestration program manager for the city of Minneapolis. We're just getting ready to break ground on our municipally owned and operated biochar facility in Minneapolis. And one of the other things here, we'd be putting it in the notes, but on September 15th through 18th in Minneapolis, mark it for your calendars to be here for the U.S. Biochar Initiatives 2025 North American Biochar Conference here in Minneapolis. It's going to be a great event. Working behind the scenes on some other things, tying into some other events that I can't talk about yet, but will be fantastic when we get there. But I want to welcome you here. I want to introduce Katie Meenan, who is our administrator, and she will go over some notes on just housekeeping and the operations here. Thank you, Katie.
Welcome to April's Char Talk. We have 3 guests today from Biochar On Site, and I will be making sure everyone stays on mute during this meeting. So please just keep an eye that your microphone is muted and feel free to drop any questions in the chat. We will have time for a panel discussion after the presentations. I'm adding a few links in the chat. Feel free to check those out. And we are excited to have you here today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Katie. And one of the other things going on here is we have a lot of folks coming from all over the place, all over the world, and it's been great participation. If you do us a favor and just let us know who you are and where you're coming from, pop it in the chat. We're glad to connect to see where folks are at and see who's traveling furthest today. But it's great to see such a good audience around here. And we're going to be putting in the LinkedIn links for Minnesota Biochar Initiative. Please follow us if you haven't yet. And also putting in the site for the Minnesota Biochar Initiative, which is our newest website that's moving forward. And I'm sure that John and others will be putting in the contact information for Boss. And but moving forward, I'd like to introduce Boss, the team here. We're going to be going through in order. It's going to be Kelpie. We have Korina and John. And starting out with Kelpie. Kelpie is the founding force behind Biochar On Site program and a nationally recognized expert in place-based biochar production with over 35 years experience in renewable energy, sustainable forestry, and resource conservation. She brings deep technical knowledge and hands-on leadership to the field. Through her company, Wilson Biochar Associates, Kelpie has worked with agencies, nonprofits, and land managers across the country to develop practical systems for converting excess biomass into biochar directly on site. Her work supports wildlife, or excuse me, not wildlife, wildfire risk reductions, soil restoration, and climate resilience, which are the key core goals of the Biochar On Site initiative. She leads field training, designs portable kiln systems like the Ring of Fire, and shares proven methods for using biochar in compost, forestry, and land stewardship. And I encourage you to connect with her on LinkedIn. It's quite the veteran for biochar. The second upcoming is Korina Stark, who's burst onto the biochar scene like a fireball and making some great strides out west. Korina is a dynamic strategist, educator and systems thinker dedicated to creating solutions that benefit both people and the planet. With over 25 years experience in technology, startups, and innovation, she brings a unique cross-disciplinary approach on the Biochar On-Site program as the director. As a small forest landowner and committed advocate for circular design, Korina helps translate biochar science into accessible, community-based action. She is a leader and volunteer with Women Owning Woodlands in Washington, reflecting her deep commitment to stewardship, education, and equitable land management. She frequently collaborates with the Cascadia Prescribed Burn Association, supporting their biochar education program by hosting community workshops and training events. Her work supports the BOSS program's mission by connecting research, real-life practice, and storytelling to accelerate adoption of place-based biochar. And again, please follow Korina Stark or connect with Korina Stark on LinkedIn. And finally, John Webster, who is just an unstoppable workhorse. I've been dealing with him quite a while. John is a passionate ecosystem steward, educator, and community organizer who brings hands-on biochar industry experience and enthusiasm. I can emphasize enthusiasm to the Biochar On-Site program. John is a driven advocate for using fire as a regenerative tool in his work to promote last-mile biochar production as a solution to hazardous fuels, soil degradation, and climate disruption at the local and national level. John leads community-based training, field demonstrations, and collaborative projects that model how biochar can restore landscapes while supporting local economies. His grounded, people-first approach helps bridge traditional knowledge, modern practice, and community empowerment. John has owned and operated Go Biochar, bulk biochar since 2019. And again, please connect with John on LinkedIn. And I'm sure they will put their website out there for BOSS. But with that, I'd like to hand this on over to the BOSS team for their presentations.
Oh, Kelpie, you are muted.
Oh, Kelpie is silent here. Katie? Katie, you're muted as well.
I apologize. I am not able to unmute Kelpie. She will have to do that herself, but there's a little microphone icon by the sharing icon in the top right corner. Do you see that? Or the...
Ah, there it is.
There you go.
There
Did
we
you find it?
go.
Yeah, there we go.
Sounds like English and I understand it.
Yeah, okay, everybody.
This
Thank
is a
you.
new platform. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And, okay. Everybody see that and hear me? Say yes.
Yes, we can hear you. It's great.
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, here's our Char Talk. Thanks, you guys, Jim and Katie, for inviting us to be here. And thanks for everybody for showing up. And this is the three of us, Korina, John, and myself. And yeah, we will have a PDF of this presentation, so don't worry about taking notes because you'll get that. And starting off with me, so my kind of qualifications here. I started off in biochar back in, I think, 2007. I went to the very first biochar conference in Australia and wrote about it, and then ended up working for the International Biochar Initiative. The most important thing I did there, I think, in my 4 years was to be in charge of facilitating the process for creating the first biochar standards and characterization testing guidelines. Since 2012, I've been a consultant working in all aspects of the industry for a lot of different clients. And then moved into the work I'm doing now, which is more about on-site biochar. And been able to produce a few products recently, a book that distills a lot of my experience that I wanted to share with everyone, the Biochar Handbook. I'm teaching a course called Practical Biochar at Regenerative Living Online. That's going to be available soon. And then I make these kilns and sell them. So I've been doing a lot in this field. And as a result of all my experience over the years, I've come to think of biochar as being able to be divided into 3 categories. First of all, market biochar, which is what most people think of when they think of the biochar industry. And that includes every kind of biochar that someone will pay for that can be part of commercial markets. Then there's another sector, which is, I would call, subsistence biochar. And early on, especially, we did a lot of work through IBI with smallholders in developing countries around cook stoves. And that work has just exploded all over the world, where small farmers and gardeners, homesteaders have figured out ways of making their own biochar and using it. And it is also biochar on site, obviously. But where I'm working most now is what I would call stewardship biochar. So that is biochar that's made on the land, for the land, whether it's involved in agriculture or not. And it really has an environmental stewardship focus. And this is partly because of where I am. I live in Southwest Oregon along the Oregon-California border. And you can see from the map there where that arrow is. I've been surrounded by a lot of fires. And I've lived in this area for 35 years and seen huge changes. This place here, the Slater fire in the Siskiyou Wilderness, that's been my playground, where I've done a lot of hiking and backpacking, and really radical changes on this landscape that are pretty concerning, that we are on the verge of losing our forests. So looking into it, what I've discovered and what people are realizing is that these forests need to burn. And 100 years of fire exclusion in the West has done a lot of damage to the forest ecologies. Now the fires are coming in way hotter, way more severe fire. And we've just interrupted these natural ecological fire cycles. Obviously, what we need to do is go back to the way things were if we can. And we're learning a lot from the native people who are still here and still doing their cultural burning practices. And a lot of people are working to revive those, to put good fire on the land with prescribed burning, cultural fire. And so that is really the goal, to return these natural fire ecologies. But there's a lot of work we need to do first, because we've let these plantations get really overgrown, overstocked, way too thick. If we light them on fire now, we end up with something like that Slater fire scene, where we have high severity fires. So we need to remove, by manual thinning, a lot of this material. And when you look at all this work that we have to do and this material, where is it going? What's the fate of this? And here's some alternatives. Probably the most common is pile incineration for disposal. And that works, but we get a lot of smoke, we get soil damage. Mastication is another option, where we leave a lot of chipped material on the landscape, and that can cause some problems, and we still have the material there being a fire risk. Then another alternative, which is a good one, is to chip it and transport it to a biomass power plant where we can make biochar and energy. But a lot of these sites are very remote, and you just can't afford to transport it, also gather it up. So the alternative that I've been advocating is mobile biochar production on site, which has a lot of benefits for the forest soils and for regeneration. So here's a picture of our current practice. We can get a lot of smoke, and the burn pile scars can be really long lasting, and removing a lot of ground from production where we're not growing trees, we're most likely just growing weeds and invasives. So looking at this problem, the first thing we started to do was just, can we burn these piles differently? And we started by lighting them on top, and that eliminates the smoke production or greatly reduces it, because you basically, the flame works as an afterburner to burn the smoke. And here's a typical job that we're trying to do these days. These are just conventional small burn piles in a thinning operation, and normally just be incinerated. So we light them on top and we burn till we get a heap of glowing coals. And at that point, instead of letting it burn all the way down to ash, we just simply put it out with water. And that involves, we can put one of these piles out with a 5-gallon backpack pump sprayer. It's a lot easier if we can get a water tender with water, but it does take some water, but we rake it out thin, and that helps it lose heat so we can minimize the water. And then what we end up with is a lot of biochar. And in this particular case, it was on a private property, so they were able to recover some for their garden and leave plenty on site for the forest soil. So we're really saving soil just by doing these burn piles differently, plus we get the biochar. And what we found is that wherever there's biochar in a burn pile scar, we get seed germination. So we're getting these native seeds from a group called the Understory Project. And they have told me, wherever we have char left in a burn pile scar, we see germination, and it's really true. It works that way. Instead of bare soil that's dried out, we have moisture holding char. Here's a little experiment I did on one of our sites this winter when we had a couple of weeks of dry weather. I went out with a just soil moisture meter just to see how, what's happening. Are my char piles wetter than the adjacent areas of soil? And yes, indeed, I found just with this sort of, non-scientific, I guess, measurement that taking a few measurements, it was pretty consistent that where there was char, the soil was wetter underneath. And we need to do more work on this, but it's a well-known quality of biochar that it holds water. Okay, so let's back up now and look at, well, how does this really work? This is combustion. This is not pyrolysis. How can you make biochar in an open burn pile? And the key here is to realize that biomass burns in stages. So and it's really different way of burning. So when you first light a pile of on fire, the first smoke that comes out of it, a lot of it's steam because there's water, and so you're drying the material, and there's a lot of water in this smoke. And then as it proceeds and the flame really develops, it's a devolatilization step where you heat the biomass, and that releases gas, what you would call wood gas, and that's what makes the flame. And if the flame isn't present, it condenses into smoke and particulates. So a flame is just burning smoke. And when you get down to the stage of where the flame is gone, now the char is burning. So it's the difference between burning a gas and burning a solid, and it burns very differently, much more slowly. And that gives you the opportunity to simply stop the process here before it goes all the way to ash. And this illustration here shows you where the pyrolysis is happening. It's happening here. So pyrolysis, is defined as burning without oxygen, basically. So it's heating and converting the material to aromatic carbon, forming the char in the absence of oxygen. And the absence of oxygen is mainly important because you're not continuing to the third phase here, burning all the way to ash. So this is the pyrolysis step in here, inside the piece of biomass. And the if you let it go all the way, you'll end up with a piece of char in here, whereas the outer bit of char is burned away to create the heat to pyrolyze the inside. So small pieces in these processes are going to work better than large logs. As you can see here, we end up in a measurement step. We pulled out the uncharred or the incompletely charred pieces so we could measure what we were doing. And you can see that big logs are just not going to char as efficiently as smaller material. Okay, so that's how it works. And then our next goal is to find out how we could do better, how we could improve the process. And pile construction makes a difference. I really like these teepee style piles. They hold the heat in. The big logs can dry more quickly, and we make more char. And so as we've developed these methods, we're getting close to 10% conversion of biomass to biochar, which is great. But of course, we want more, always more. And so we pursued the flame cap kiln, which can get up to even greater than 20% conversion efficiency. And a lot of this development of the flame cap kilns was a result of citizen science, which I'm kind of proud of, that this didn't come from, big corporations or a top down, it's bottom up. And I was really privileged to be able to work with this group called the UMCO Biochar Education Team. NRCS supported Conservation Innovation Grant, wonderful program where we worked to develop the kilns, the flame cap kilns. And during our project, we made a lot of biochar and we tried a lot of different things. One of the designs that came out of this was the Oregon kiln, which is just a bin. And we have open source plans available for that if you want to make your own. And then the Ring of Fire kiln, which I manufacture and sell, by the way. I'm having a spring sale if you want one. Check that out. And there's a process for the Ring of Fire or any flame cap kiln where you load it up, you light it on top, you let it burn down, and then you continually load it. So it's sort of a continuous process, not just a batch process. And it'll consume about 10 times its volume in material and make a couple of yards of biochar at the end. This is how the Ring of Fire works. It has this outer ring.
Is it the bowling alley?
Hello. The Ring of Fire kiln works where you have
Jeez, these skunks are everywhere right now.
a ring inside of a ring, and the air flows through the annular gap, and it helps keep the process cleaner. So we end up with these convection loops where the smoke can get pulled back into the kiln and burned up. So it's cleaner and it's more efficient than other kinds of flame cap kilns because the heat shield holds in the heat. And by the way, protects the worker. You're not exposed to so much heat. We have some other designs that are starting to be developed here. The big box kiln developed in Utah by Darren McAvoy, which because it's bigger can process bigger material. It's also an open source design that's getting spread all around the world and can make a good amount of biochar. Then we have the air curtain burners, and these are great, especially for doing bigger material and can make a lot of char. There's a bunch of variations on this, including ones that are specifically designed to make biochar. So that's a really great development. This is a report that I co-authored with the US Forest Service, one of their general technical reports, where we looked in great detail at all of this whole spectrum of technologies for making biochar on site. And we analyzed the productivity and the logistics of how you would deploy these on a landscape. It's very detailed. I encourage you to take a look at it if you want to know more about how you would actually do this on the landscape. This is the report. So yeah, there's a code there. You can go right to it. All right, so everybody always asks, well, how do you scale this up? And instead of scaling up, I like to talk about scaling out across the landscape, because that's what we need to do. We need to get out to these remote areas, to these places like small landowners who have little bits of biomass. They're not going to afford to be able to ship it somewhere to be processed. And so we can do it on site. And since I've been selling Ring of Fire kilns for a couple of years, I've sold more than that now, more than 350. And it's just a breakdown of the people who are buying them and using them, including, the biggest users are small farms and small woodland owners. And a number of agencies, state agencies, federal, fire, to municipalities, NGOs, schools, watershed groups and tribes. So it's quite a good variety of groups and people that are using these. Here's a few projects to illustrate. Grayback Forestry, a wildland firefighting organization that does a lot of the thinning and pile burning, a great organization that I've worked with a lot. They're using the NRCS. This project was paid for by NRCS under the 384 practice code. Here's a great example of someone making a living doing biochar as a service in vineyards. Napa Char, Eric Mayer, has just been going great guns, turning vines into biochar for California vineyards. The BLM did this project where they're using Ring of Fire kilns and Oregon kilns, making biochar. And then we have a lot of conservation districts that have bought the Ring of Fire kiln, and they're starting kiln loader programs. So, small woodland owners, farms can borrow this tool and use it for a couple of days and then return it and let someone else use it. So that's a great idea. Ecosystem restoration, ecological restoration. Howard Eco Works, wonderful group in Maryland that's using Ring of Fire kilns in their work. And then you guys in Minnesota are doing this too. Great River Greening has a biochar initiative, and they're using several different kinds of kilns there for ecological restoration. So that's Stewardship Biochar. And this is great. Nevada City, California now is starting a biochar program. They're going to be allowing city residents within the municipal city limits to use the Ring of Fire kiln. And that's great. So, a biochar on site, we have a few barriers we're trying to address to make things easier. This is why we're kind of coming together in a network to encourage this practice and spread it. Permitting is one issue we've needed to deal with, just demonstrating the benefits, finding funding, training people to do the work. It's not difficult, but a little training really helps you do a better job. And then just through our network, we've already accomplished a great deal in terms of helping each other out. So one of the things that we're doing to help move this out further is to do some emissions measurements so people understand, they may understand the benefits of biochar, but have questions about our process and is it really clean or better than what we're already doing. So we have been doing some emissions measurements, and we're in the process of writing those up now, both for the burn piles and for the kiln. And so far, this is all the data we have on emissions from these processes. And this is from the Forest Service report that I shared earlier. And, in terms of the burn piles, if you look at the difference between flaming combustion and using dry material, there's definitely a difference between that and smoldering versus and wet smoldering material in terms of the particulates. Excuse me. So what we're doing is the best burn practice because we want the char. We need the flaming combustion. We need it dry. So that's motivating anyone who wants to make biochar from a burn pile is going to make a cleaner burn pile than someone who's just trying to get rid of material. So that's a win right there. And then, the air curtain burners have some good emissions data. They're very clean. And then the only data we have for a flame cap kiln is right here. And what's interesting, and it looks to be pretty clean, but what's also interesting is look at this number here for CO2 compared to the other numbers in that column. And what that is indicating is that's carbon that went into the biochar and not into the atmosphere. So in terms of CO2, we're doing a great job. All right, so the last step here is to look at life cycle analysis. What's the total carbon footprint of these BOSS processes? And when you're looking at life cycle analysis, these are the factors you need to look at to determine if you really have a lower carbon footprint. And so these items here are drawdown. When you're making biochar, putting it in soil, that's drawdown. And you also get the benefit of increased biomass growth. But at the same time, your process is going to contribute emissions to atmospheric greenhouse gas. And those are going to come from the biomass logistics, so cutting and treating the biomass, the thermochemical conversion process, whatever that is, your pyrolysis process, any post-processing, and then distribution and application. And when we make biochar on site, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. We are doing these two. So that's what we need to consider in our LCA. And this was a project I was involved in. It was under the Waste to Wisdom project, where it was a big, huge DOE funded project looking at different ways of treating waste biomass. This was the biochar aspect. And we compared the Oregon kiln, which at the time was the only flame cap kiln we had, with a movable gasifier that could be brought out to a site. And the line here, 0, if you look at a pile burn, that's considered carbon neutral because the biomass grew and took carbon out of the atmosphere. And then when we burned it, it put it back. The gasifier here, the gray bit is the biochar, and then the additional benefits from making that. And the line here shows the actual carbon benefit. So it is better. It is carbon negative by about this much. So that's avoided emissions there. And then with the Oregon kiln, we had the biochar, and then we had more avoided emissions. And so it was more carbon negative. So I think we can say, and we need to do more work on this, but at least from this preliminary look, that the biochar on site is very carbon negative and very much worth doing from a climate perspective. And finally, part of our network, part of the beauty of the BOSS network is bringing people together with different ideas and skills. And one of the groups we brought in here is a group that's created this Char app, which actually lets you go through the whole process and do monitoring, reporting, and verification of the biochar you make on site, potentially being eligible for carbon removal credits. And so there's a lot there to unpack, and we'll talk about that another time maybe. But I want to invite you to join us. We've got our monthly online meetup, our new website, and at this point, I will turn it over to Korina to talk more about all that.
Wonderful. And I'm just, Kelpie, did you want to just keep on driving since you've got the deck up already?
Sure, I'm happy to.
That'd be great. Let's just pull that up and slide on into it.
Korina, I caught part of your last webinar right before this one. It was pretty good. You did a great job. Kelpie, let me know when if you need
I'm done. Can you see the slides?
I can't.
I'm not seeing anything.
I better let you share.
Okay.
Here, let me see if I can.
John,
let me see if I can
you
do
have
it for you. Yeah, let me. Find the end of Kelpie's.
Sorry about that. I
No worries.
got lost.
While you're doing that, may I also take the opportunity again. Welcome to Char Talk. And hopefully you're enjoying it here today. If you're new to Char Talk, please let us know who you are, where you're from. This is a monthly meeting that we have, bringing people together to learn about biochar. And I see the show is back on. So take it away, Korina.
Wonderful. All right. And
Next slide. Are we there?
yay, we're here.
Yes. Thank you, John.
Well, hi everybody, and thank you, Kelpie. I always get something new out of all the presentations that Kelpie gives because there's always new information, and that's a big part of why the Biochar On Site community has been, I think, personally very helpful and rewarding, and I think so helpful to so many others. So maybe if we go to the next slide, next couple slides, I'll just sort of explain a little bit about who the heck I am and why I'm here. So this is a picture of me last weekend making biochar, cold tailing with my hands to make sure that everything is out. And this is my small forest land. Oops, hold on. This is my small forest land, and my videos should be coming back on. Okay, there we go. It's located where this arrow is pointing. And this map that you're looking at is the map of the US fire sheds. And the ones that are red are, surprise, surprise, the most severe and the most at risk. And so that's where my forest land is. And that's really what got me into biochar, was finding ways of dealing with slash that were less likely to escape and with lower emissions, and be something that would be helping the soil rather than hurting it. If we can go to the next slide. And there'll be a couple slides that come up here. So first on the left, this is another picture taken at a different angle down from a little hill that we've got. And you'll notice kind of on the bottom of there's a couple, some ellipses down there, and kind of on the left too. Those are burn scars from large open burn piles that were done on our property. We bought it after there had been a fairly large logging operation on it, and we've been working on regenerating it ever since. And so I was like acutely aware of what the issues were there. And in Washington State at the time, we couldn't even use the flame cap kilns. And thankfully, the folks at the Washington Farm Forestry Association had the initiative to start to change the law. And a broad coalition of people came together to help advance this legislation and help with the education of the lawmakers that this wasn't a burn barrel. This was indeed a practice that could be used, that was accessible, that was going to improve air quality and lower the fire risk, and that it wasn't going to have the same emissions profile as a burn barrel. So on the right-hand side is some of the examples of educational material that we prepared. In the top middle there is me testifying, and so many people wrote in, emailed, called their legislators. Laws can get changed. It's a group sport, a team sport. But then on the bottom there, you can see I felt really privileged to be able to go and see the governor sign it into law. And so now we can use flame cap kilns in most places in Washington State. If we can go to the next slide. There we go. So within a month of the ink getting dry on that, I had already been in conversations with the conservation district locally to me in the Chelan County, and we hosted a workshop on my property. And what was really cool about that is that, we had a couple people there. They were neighbors, there were foresters, there were people from various different organizations, and somebody from the local fire station. And I went over and talked to him. I said, hey, check this out. There's like not this much smoke. And he's like, yeah, that's cool. But what's really cool is I'm just not really seeing a whole lot of embers. And it's getting hot enough in there that all the material is getting processed instead of a lot of, sometimes with burn piles, you're having to light and relight. That was not the case here. So even within 6 months, the picture on the bottom there is another workshop that we did. And as you can see, there's a whole lot more people. So as we've been doing this, we've been, getting more and more people coming from the community to come see these demonstrations, to participate in them. And at the end of this month, we're going to be doing one with the Washington Farm Forestry Association with the field day after their annual meeting. And we've got over 100 people registered to come to that. So it's really wonderful to see this evolution happening in these communities. And that's not all. The other place that I've been taking this personally, well, not just me, it's a group effort. Again, all of this is a group effort. Can we go to the next slide? The short version is that we've applied for a grant through the federal government that we were awarded. And the goal of that, Kelpie talked a little bit about carbon credits, is to see if we can use them as a mechanism to help support small forest landowners with their forest health. Can we aggregate the good outcomes that they're participating in, pool revenue from that, and pour it back in for even more forest health projects? So we're on the early stages of this. This is for, we're targeting folks in central and north central Washington state as part of this. But feel free to follow along even if you're not in that area. We're hoping to learn a lot from it, and hopefully it's something that becomes replicable. And that leads us to this, back to Biochar On Site. We're all trying to learn from each other. And what Biochar On Site is, it's really a community of practice. We are all coming together. We are all passionate about this. We all have a different point of view, a different context, but overlapping passion for this. And that's what Biochar On Site is a place for us to come together, learn from each other, and float all boats. Let's go to the next slide. And we're executing on this. We're trying to make this a normal and widespread practice, that it isn't just some weird, obscure thing that, somebody's doing, but that it's everywhere. And so we're using education, innovations, like a lot of these technologies are, there's new kilns coming out that people are designing and getting out there. You saw on Kelpie's slides a couple different incarnations of kilns there. There's incarnations happening with the air curtain burners. You also saw in my slides that we needed to actually change the law. And so part of this is around helping people do that in their local communities. And so our hope is that in the future, this is normal. It is everywhere. And not just that people are making biochar and selling it on the market, which, of course can happen, but if possible, making biochar and using it on the soils right there, using the methods that are going to be appropriate for that landscape. So the values that we're, a lot of these should be no surprise to anybody here. We're really trying to help improve the land. And we are trying to sequester carbon. And we are trying to make sure that these landscapes, especially fire-adapted landscapes, don't have these high severity fires, but have a positive fire exposure. And getting communities together, sharing knowledge, and continuing to make what we do better, more efficient, easier, and available to more and more people. So some of the tools that we've got, so the tools on the right-hand side are already available, they're already on the website, or they're accessible through the website. One is the monthly meetup that we have. Kelpie alluded to that earlier. There's also a forum that's there as well. Something that's been really fun to see come to life is the event calendar. If you're hosting a workshop, if you're doing a demo, or even if you're doing a burn on your property and you want to let other people know about it and they can swing by and maybe throw a login or two, put it on the event calendar. It's a wonderful way to see about things that are going on near you or just around. There's also a directory, which is growing. I'm sure it's going to double in size in the next couple months because it includes practitioners, people who provide equipment, groups and organizations that are doing local work with this. And then thank you, John, for manning the social media channels. What's been great is not only the sharing out that Boss is able to do, but then also being able to amplify the posts made by people within our network. On the left on this slide are some of the tools that are in development right now. Fact sheets. So these are not just for the people in the network, but for people in the network to take to educate clients or to educate policymakers or other constituents who want to learn a little bit more. The decision guides and technical resources, those are really to help folks who are doing the work make decisions more quickly and more easily, and to have them as something that they can point to, again, clients, policymakers, et cetera, say, well, yeah, this is why I think this is a good idea, and this is why we're going to do it this way. The last one is really around helping get more money to more people who are doing this good work. The grant that I talked about earlier is a fantastic example of this because it takes a village to make this stuff happen. And so we had letters of support from, gosh, I think about like 8 different organizations and entities. And not only does it make your grant application stronger, it's wonderful to have those other organizations support you in your outreach and your execution. Biochar On Site is a party that wants to be able to provide that for folks. And so if you are looking at doing some of that type of work, come talk to us. We would love to talk to you. So how do you get involved? I mean, the QR code here on the bottom right, and I think we'll be putting it in the chat to Biochar On Site. Just come to the website because you can do all of those things. Well, I mean, you can't follow us on there, but you can find our social links on there to follow us with. But you can do all of these things, and I hope that you, in addition to the folks who are already taking advantage of it, will get a lot of value out of it. The last thing I would just note here is that we're doing a lot of this, primarily as volunteers, but there's still funding that we need to make sure that the website stays up, and a bunch of other things. So if you're able to get the benefit out of the network, if you're also able to make a meaningful financial contribution, that would be very, very appreciated. And now over to John.
Hey, everybody, I'm going to take over now. I know that we're getting short on time, so I'm going to talk fast and probably a little loud. So, Jim, I don't know if we can run just a couple of minutes over. It'd be great if we could have a little extra time to do informal conversations during the Q&A.
You are on a roll. I don't want to stop you.
All right. So, hello, everybody. I'm this guy. My name's John Webster. I'm the Director of Communications and Fundraising for Biochar On Site. I spent the last 3 years and some change volunteering and working for the U.S. Biochar Initiative. I have a commercial biochar company in the state of Utah called Go Biochar. I've been around for a while. And what I want to do is I want to talk about a story. So we heard a story about Kelpie earlier on, a story that led her to become an author, an inventor, a practitioner, an educator. We heard a story about Korina, one about stewardship, passion for the land, community, legislative involvement. That right there, that's our spark. This was my spark. came across the word biochar entirely by accident because I was trying to fix my lawn. Next thing I know, I've got burn barrels in the backyard. Well, not burn barrels, but T-luds, nested retorts. Year later, I have a commercial pyrolyzer. I had a problem, and it's been wonderful. So right there, this is the Amaron RK240 pyrolyzer, mobile pyrolyzer. Nights and weekends, making biochar, growing big gardens, talking to people about biochar and finding out what we can do to capture that carbon and put it to use. That led, with my time at USBI, that led to getting to play with fire. Learning how to use it as a tool, implement it, educate about it. This is Darren McAvoy's Big Box Biochar. This was an event that we held in Tooele, Utah at the landfill. It was called Char Palooza. It was a great event. Now, that little spark leads to doing things like suddenly I'm doing webinars where I'm working with local, state, and federal agencies, NRCS agents. I'm interacting with all kinds of different people. You can see the fun bus going on. That's from the Biochar Academy in 2023 in New York. You wouldn't know it, but if you look at this, in here we have people that are X Prize finalists. We have people that are leading multinational operations where they're helping people with place-based biochar for basically growing food, having jobs, doing much, much more. This is my friend Louisa, who now she's the IBI director. It has been wild. Hey, Sam, I see you in here today. So that's Sam with Gardens of Fire. I also helped write things like documents. I did the newsletters. I did the NRCS funding fact sheet and much, much more. All we have to do is take a spark and make action with it. Now, when I'm not volunteering for BOSS, I have a North American Biochar Sales and Service project, and they do it by the truck. This part where I'm going to talk to you, because this is your job. This is your spark. This is your time. This is the time to ignite the spark in others. This is the time to build the community of stewardship. This is the time to support healing and growth. At Biochar On Site, we deliver real solutions for real needs. This is not magical thinking. This is Biochar On Site. And we want you to be part of this. We need you to be part of this. And it's a very rewarding environment and opportunity. We scale biochar widely by focusing on a legion of local practitioners. This is agency. This is something you can do in your own backyard. You can do it at the fire pit when you're camping. You can always choose to go bigger. You can end up getting kilns. You can develop a little addiction maybe to playing with fire to create the carbon that you can store in soils, because when we have the carbon in soils, things burn slower, plants grow better. It's a healing situation. And stories, that's how we learn, share, and act. That's how we engage. One video, one post, who knows how many it'll inspire. I find myself working with these people that accidentally started on things like TikTok and Instagram. Their videos get 1 million hits. They're mentioning biochar. How fun is that? So again, we scale by showing people that they can do it too. Individuals make a difference. I know that Kelpie talked about Napchar, but I'm super proud of Eric. This is somebody who had the same spark, and he said, you know what, I'm going to do something. He made a business. So this is green jobs, no federal funding, no DAC money, nothing like that. Willpower and the willingness to get his hands dirty and do the work. And that's what we see with our practitioners. In 2024, it's estimated that Eric and his team captured 110 tons of CO2. Just a couple of folks, some simple barrels. In that photo, you see 2 Ring of Fire kilns and a big box biochar in the background. This is a project where they did 8 acres. This is all doable. We are the people that like to do the work, and we are the people that can do the work. So I'm going to encourage you to get involved, and the ways that you can do so is host a demo, share your stories. When you do the stories, especially on social media, tag us at Biochar On Site, hashtag Biochar On Site, last mile biochar, place-based biochar, whatever you want to do, we'll find it and we'll help amplify your voice. We do have some opportunities for volunteers. It's a very rewarding opportunity with Biochar On Site and your local agencies. get others to join our forums and meetups. The monthly meetup is fantastic. It's first Wednesday of every month. We schedule it for 90 minutes, so it's not just the little 1 hour thing, but also utilize our directory. Maybe you don't want to do the work yourself, but hire somebody that's on our directory and give them the green jobs and have them help you stabilize that carbon and put it to work in your environment. So whether it's fire footage or field work, we need you in the mix. It's your voice, your money, your events. Boss practices are safe, they're scalable, and they're project ready. We already have people doing the work day to day. Every voice, story, and dollar helps build the needed tools and training. We have a website to do. We have education programs to build. We've got partners that are willing to go. We've got the USBI that's willing to back us. We've got IBI that's willing to back us. We're talking to Ansbig. We've got Jim and MNBI already backing us. So this is a program that spark has started. We're going to see where it takes us. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you have the capacity to fund a burn kit sponsor training or talk to your local community leaders, please do. If you have the capacity to give a significantly meaningful personal contribution to this and help move this project forward, please do. The land is ready. The people are ready. Let's get to work. So with power, purpose, and intent, let's spark it up. And with that, I'm done. Thank you so much. Let's connect on there. And now let's go ahead and step into the Q&A. Jim, this is your time to shine.
Well, thanks, Sir John. It's always hard to follow up that one. I'll be looking like Debbie Downer. John is quite the enthusiast. So, like, awesome presentation. I just want to give a shout out here as well to our boss group here. But also, as you mentioned, I appreciate the shout out to Todd Rexine out of our own Great River Greening, a very active member of Minnesota Biochar Initiative. And we also have a new person in here, Caleb Johnson from Washington County, who is jumping into this great guns with the boss concepts and doing biochar at the county level. So we've got some great initiative. And I also want to say before, as we get into this, that I want to say thank you to our overseas friends that came over here, Wales, Egypt, India. It's fantastic, and there's probably more. We're very happy to see you, that you can join us here, and hopefully we can all work together as a team, as John and the group mentioned. With that, questions, comments, anyone want to raise your hand or pipe in with a question? You can also lead it into the chat. And Katie just dropped an email in here into the chat for this. If you'd like to get on the chat list or the invite list for Char Talk, please connect up with Katie and she'll get you on our list, so you don't have to wait for us to bug you. So with that, I know we have some questions out there, so step right up.
Who wants to talk? Hey, Korina, I heard you invented your own little biochar kiln for fun.
You are just that efficient, but I know that I'm seeing a lot of interest in the notes here, so it's really good to see. Go ahead, Ann.
Apologies, Jim. I was just going to say, if no one else chimes in with a question, I noticed a few from Nick that he shared earlier that haven't been addressed. Nick asks, does a high percentage of wood ash offsetting the percentage of carbon in the biochar from a flame cap kiln mean the biochar is low quality? And I'll put this in the chat as well if Nick wants to chime in.
I can speak to that. So when we make biochar in the ring of fire kiln, flame cap kiln, we're getting about 20% conversion efficiency. And that's equivalent to some of the best dedicated pyrolysis equipment. So I wouldn't expect any more ash than I would in other processes. And the thing about ash is some of it's incorporated in the biochar matrix, but a lot of it will be rinsed away because it's not incorporated. So the biochar that we make is very high quality. It ranks right up there with in commercial biochars. So I don't believe that the ash is an issue with what we're doing.
Yeah, that was meant to be a leading question as to biochar specifications and what gets defined as a quality biochar when the ash is a separate factor really from what the material itself is.
I should
Yeah,
say
that-
Nick is quite the biochar enthusiast activist.
Okay.
I have a question. Sorry, Jim, this is Sam Dunlap.
Yeah.
I'm off screen, so hopefully I'm not interrupting anybody else. I'm just wondering about data folks have on using invasives as feedstock. You know, here in Cincinnati, got tons of honeysuckle. And I know there's folks up there in your neck of the woods doing that as well, Jim, but just wondering what folks have seen about the quality of the char when you're using invasives as the feedstock. Thank you.
I know I can speak to in Washington State, especially on the west side of the Cascade Mountain Range, there's a lot of Scotch broom. Scotch broom is highly invasive, has a lot of oils in it, and the seeds can last for about 7 years. So being able to, really nuke it as much as possible is definitely a thing. And we've got some folks in the state who are specializing in using a ring of fire to pyrolyze Scotch broom as a specific service. I haven't seen, and maybe Kelpie has, lab testing on the biochar from that, but as a service and as a technique for invasives, it's certainly been put to very good use here in Washington.
That's a great question, Sam. Thank you. That's Sam is one of my Bloomberg counterparts down in Cincinnati. So he'll be the private operator when they get their operation going there. One of the other things.
Used to live in the Met Howe Valley, Korina. So good to hear stuff from that neck of the woods as well. Thanks.
Love the method. Love it. Love it. Love it.
And it's again just learn more and more about the sand down there. So one of the other things is that with here in Minnesota, Todd Rexine is working with buckthorn management, and Dakota County as well, and the parks are there, and they've been using Kelpie. They've been using your ring of fire and burn boxes successfully out there doing demonstrations, great events. And I want to get to one of the other questions that we have from Richard. Would the kiln combusted char qualify for NRCS Conservation Practice 336?
Don't me answer that. I can answer that.
Yeah, that's
All
a
right.
question for Sean.
So Biochar On Site practices largely will be what you utilize with Code 384. NRCS Code 384 is conversion of on-site woody biomass materials into biochar. Honestly, it's a little easier depending on the size of your acreage, it's a little easier to get this funding right now than it is the Code 336. Depending on the practice, the ACIs, they'll be qualified. The quality of the biochar made in both the big box and the ring of fire kilns and some of the smallers can work, absolutely. You do have to get it tested, so that's important to understand that just because it's biochar doesn't mean it's going to be approved. They do require adequate testing to validate that it's proper carbonaceous material. But yeah, that's an excellent question. And whether you're going to get paid or not, still makes sense to put it into your landscape whenever possible. You know, I saw the question said, what are the best practices for storing biochar once it's done? Obviously in the soil. After that, often we just want to make sure we're kind of keeping it out of the sun because that will allow some of the decomposition over time. It's not that it decomposes quickly, but we do want to avoid it because we want to find a way to get it to work into the soils. Folks use super sacks, any number of things. So common sense, you want to make sure that it's hydrated and not stored next to fire. So
yeah. The Tyrell has a really good question here. I have a lot of communities wanting to have hands-on workshops and classes for kids and adults alike. Is that in the plan? Don't all
I
speak at
think we'd
once.
all love to be able to. We'd all love to be able to do that, right? Just so you know, Tyrell's local in Utah here, so he's been using biochar for a number of years now. And Tyrell, yeah, by and large throughout the network, that type of education is an intended program that we'll support. We are on our to-do list is a fact sheet on how to plan and prepare for your own events, understanding policy and regulations in your local area, which can be extremely confusing. That is one of our barriers that Kelpie was mentioning earlier. Sometimes individual counties and cities will have codes and regulations that don't match with the local state, and so you can find yourself working through some bureaucracy. And that's exactly what we found in how Korina got involved with the policy level. So again, our intended purpose is to be a network of support. So we will be supporting the practitioners. We will be informing lawmakers about effective, useful policy that's friendly towards responsible implementation of fire to capture that carbon and restore and landscapes. So again, it's sanity, practicality, community, jobs. Biochar is an investment. It is not a cost. It's absolutely an investment. And good question, Tyrell. I don't know how soon we'll be doing a demo. The last one we did. Oh, actually, I have one coming up in May. I'll let you know about it. It'll be on. Oh, that was a good question. I get it. He was trying to get me to tell everybody about the fact that we have a calendar on our website. So go and find our calendar, and you can subscribe to it, and you'll find out where and when the events are happening in your area.
Sometimes you got to dangle that worm and jerk that hook a little bit harder to get you to bite the right one.
I think Kelpie wants to talk.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Kelpie. Sorry.
I just want to say the question about kids. So I've done a lot of day camps with kids and biochar. We have an on-ramp camp for like high school age kids where we actually get out and do some, prescribed burning, biochar burning, more like preparing them for jobs. And then I've done a few for more middle school age kids. And it's as a STEM activity. Biochar just has endless possibilities and it's really fun and the kids love it. And so I have some curriculum material. If anybody wants to do biochar with kids, just, contact me separately and I can send you some of our curriculum material. But it's a great way to introduce people, kids and their parents, to biochar, is do some of these STEM activities with kids in biochar.
And what's so great about it, you can get them, sorry, Korina, you can get them away from their screens. You can get them using their hands. They do things, they make stuff. You can let them know that they're making a material that is effectively, it registers as a blip on deep time. Not a lot of things that we do as humans that we can say do that, yeah, cement and steel and some other things, but this is something that you can do. Again, agency. This is it. It really is a miraculous
also
thing.
Incorporate art into it because charcoal is an art material. So lots.
Yeah, it's something, if anybody is going to be doing a workshop soon, something that we found that is super fun and also really helpful is that make sure you have two things with you. One is one of those measurement, like thermometer measurements that has the little, the two little dots. Not only can you use it with your cats to amuse them, but you can take a temperature reading, and you give that to the youngest person right there, and just get them to point at it and read out the numbers that they see. And, especially if you're using something like a ring of fire on the heat shield versus the panel that's right next to it, or pointing it inside and seeing what the temperature is. The second tool that's really great to give to kids is a thermal monocular. And they will go around, especially when you're quenching, and be like, I found another hotspot. And then somebody comes over and quenches it. And it's wonderful. And I know I said two, but the third thing is that if you have marshmallows for the end of your demo, you will be everybody's new best friend, because the kids will love it. And all the adults who say that they never do it will do it too.
We do burritos, especially
Yeah.
on the Ring of Fire and the big box, because there's that gap. So we take frozen burritos, and then people have their investment in it because then they get to cook their burrito and they heat their own lunch.
I gotta learn your tricks here. Jim, unverified, there is two of us apparently in the world, is asking what is the best practice to prep your biochar before adding biochar to the soil? And we have another question down below about compost tea.
So compost. I always say that biochar, the best and highest use of biochar is to use it to manage other organic waste streams. So whatever you have, whether it's manure, food scraps, your own urine, if you're, a municipality and you have waste wood and you have composting systems, great place to do biochar on site right there from the woody material that is harder to compost, and mix those things together, because that charges your biochar with nutrients and life, and it makes the compost so much better, and it holds more nutrients from your manure. So use it that way if you possibly can.
Yeah, Kelpie here, we have a saying, most of our work in Minneapolis dealing with soil health, and we mix it with compost, biochar with compost, and use it that way. Say it's like chocolate and peanut butter, but good separately, better together. And now we threw marshmallows in here. We have a s'more. So I like these comments.
Yeah,
There
and
are
in forestry though, I mean, if you don't have compost nearby, still just get it on the soil, and you will see the difference. I know I've seen it in our remote forest land where we unfortunately did not have any compost, and it still makes a big difference.
Well, in forestry situations, it's really just a form of biomimicry. You're just putting the char back. So, if you look at forest soils, researchers have looked at the whole profile, and the older soil horizons have up to 50% of the carbon is charcoal from past fires. But the more recent horizons are depleted. They don't have the charcoal. So we're just putting back what should be there. And forests you don't need to add compost or nutrients, because the litter falls onto the char and it just gets incorporated like it should naturally.
That's some really good points. And the one question I see out here that has been answered yet, is this process really carbon negative and will help reduce GHGs?
Well, I addressed that, I think, in my presentation with the life cycle analysis, that it can actually be more carbon negative than a commercial biochar process. Of course, we're not getting the energy. If you add the energy recovery like you can in some of the big industrial biochar processes, then it might do better than what we're doing. But what we're doing is definitely better than the current practice of lighting it on fire in smoky burn piles, and it can even be better than some more industrial biochar processes.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that especially in the area that I'm working, what we're trying to do is to minimize the severity of wildfire as well. So instead of having everything burn into and really, really negatively impact the soil, to go back to a positive fire regime where it's, these sort of lighter surface fires, kind of like the practices that had been going on for millennia here, before the last 100, 200 years. So it's not just like, hey, all fire is bad. It's like, let's see if we can get back to, another fire regime and get it so that it's not the same severity. Because when the wildfires go up and you've got a lot of smoke going up all at the same time, that's really, really harmful, not just to humans, but also all that smoke has a higher chance of landing on our glaciers, and that means that the glaciers are not as reflective. Also, when you compare it to just the wood rotting in sight, and yes, you want some of that, right? That's a good thing, but if it's a huge amount of it, a lot of what comes out is methane. And methane, if you look at the greenhouse gas curves on that, is really, really harmful up front. So part of this is looking looking, like with all, life cycle analyses, what are your boundary conditions, right? How far out in the system are you looking? And so I think when you start looking, out even broader and broader, you can start to see how positively impactful this tool can be.
These are some great questions, great presentation, folks. We do have to call it quits here pretty quick. There are some other questions out there, but I'd love to see this activity and this interest in the topic. And like I said, we have 3 great speakers here. We're very happy to be here for the launch of BOSS. Get involved. One of the other things we're trying to do is expand this out of get this across the country, bring this down to your regions. And I'm talking about that. Minnesota Biochar was formed in order to bring government, industry and one more researchers together to develop biochar where we are. At this local level, we understand where it's at. Other associations like this that we need to get developed in your part of the woods. Let's get involved, get it out, and then we can promote BOSS through this to provide that expertise down to that biochar where you are level, and get some partners like we have with Todd and Caleb here in the state here. So and
Yeah.
others.
Jim, I'm going to interrupt and say, I know we have to cut this one short, but we have another meeting coming up on May 7th at noon Pacific for our Biochar On Site community meeting. So we encourage you to join us. So it's an open invite.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. And I'm really happy for everybody. Thank you very much for the illustrious speakers here. It's good to see you all. So it didn't disappoint. But I want to join us next month in May when our Char Talk is going to be from Silvera, talking about rating of carbon projects. So got a call from Bristol, England, setting this one up while I was in Atlanta for the biomass conference. So it should be an interesting one. We have some other ones lined up as well. If you are interested in presenting on Char Talk, please get a hold of us, and we'd be glad to have you on here, get you into the schedule. And some great participation. Hope to see better improved links across the network. And I'm happy to have BOSS as part of the MNBI partnership and helping us reach folks at the grassroots and developing that agency, as John says. Thank you very much, folks. You have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. It was great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. See ya.
Thank you, everyone.